show with Paul Daner, Mark Salafo. Kick off the weekend, all right. It's the Growler Friday show. It's Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr. here with Mark Salafo. What's going on?
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to see the guys back out on the field again. We got wristwatch happening on Twitter, so it's good to see the Twitter docs in full force again and have some more things to talk about on that front.
Yeah, I love Twitter docs. We should really have every Twitter doc here on the show at some point, I feel like. Let's bring them all in.
Well, this is a mailbag show. It's a Q&A format. I think we should just accept people's medical ailments and then run those by the Twitter docs. If you don't have health insurance, just send us what's troubling you. Just send an email to thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com and we'll get some troll on Twitter to diagnose you.
What an amazing new segment this could be. I am 100% here for this. Send us your ailments, Twitter doc diagnosis. I want this. I want this so badly.
I know we should probably get a sponsor for it, but
yeah. What bad Twitter docs? What would be a good sponsor for bad Twitter docs?
Probably like some sort of mental health provider would be a good one, just to really put those guys in their places. Like, all right, here's what you really need. You don't need to listen to some troll on Twitter. You need to get your mind right.
Maybe a lawyer, maybe a law firm would be good. Misdiagnosis. There's probably going to be a case there at some point. I feel like all of this is in play. Well, we've got a lot to get to, but outside of misdiagnosis and Twitter docs, we've got your questions. Thanks to all of you that have been sending those in. Of course, that's kind of what drives our show here on Friday. It's what you want, and that is sending your questions in to us at the Growler Podcast at gmail.com, and we will get to them here. Where there will be, you can ambush, which we'll have an ambush. Excited. Shout out to Brian, listener Brian, who said, hey, your ambush section should clearly be called Ambush Light. And wow, what an oversight by us not even seeing that. So thank you, Brian, for being there. Now Ambush Light, the name of that new segment, and honestly embarrassed that we couldn't come up with that originally. So that's why you're here to pick up the slack for us.
Yeah, in the history of the show, we're going to totally whitewash over him and claim Ambush Light as one of our own ideas. Once we're rolling mid-season, we're going to just act like we had that the entire time. That was just completely on us. But we do appreciate everybody's contributions like that. Keep sharing the show, spreading the word, and also submitting those things. We still need a name for our listeners. We have not gotten anything good on that front. Somebody said that we could be the Growl Pack, which, it's okay. The Growl Pals was another one that was submitted. That just sounds like a line of stuffed animals. And somebody else suggested the Den as your listeners. Like, oh, we asked the Den for suggestions about this. I'm not feeling the Den. So I think we still need some work to do there on that front.
I know we skew a little older than some podcasts in the Bengals genre, but I don't think we're in the Den, right? And I know you're trying to go Bengal Den and Animal Den, but I think old man in the chair Den, right? And I don't want to be put out to pasture like that just yet. I still feel young enough for the beginning part of the day. My bones creak a little bit as it goes on, but I'm good in the beginning. I'm not ready to be in a den yet and in the soft leather recliner. Well, I'll be in the recliner, but I don't want to be in there like doing work and reading old books.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the plastic covered couch that the elderly person has in there in the den. We're not to that point yet, so we still need better nicknames, but we did get a lot of good questions this week. Are you ready to jump into a few?
I am. Let's jump into some questions. Let's do it.
Well, they did release the date that the schedule will be released, the release of the release. That's going to be next week. So what's your prediction for the amount of primetime games and matchups we're most likely going to see happen under the lights? And this was from Clayton. He also includes, FYI, you are a great co-host on Dey Light, Mark. Oh, thank you, Clayton. Anybody that has just outright praise from me, that's how to get your question to the top of the list. Let's just be honest here.
I was going to say, I mean, I was wondering how that one got in there at number one. we'll talk more schedule next week, but this is a good appetizer, if you will, for mock schedule and true schedule deep dive thoughts, with it coming out Wednesday night next week. I would still expect the Bengals to be in the close to a max prime time. I think anything less than that would be surprising. They're still a major draw. They're still Burrow. They're still expected to be really good. Their schedule still has plenty of enticing games. I mean, every AFC North game has primetime juice if you want it to. You've got games against the Eagles. The Chiefs obviously is going to be in a major time slot. Chargers. I mean, you name it. There's the schedule is, while it's a fourth place schedule and not as formidable as in previous years, there's plenty there for the league to bite on, and the Bengals have been I don't think that they're forgotten. I do think there's other teams that have kind of become the new hot teams and the new hot names. And so they're not as prominent as they were maybe last year, but I do think that I would be really surprised if you didn't see 3 or 4 primetime and in the vicinity, just like last year, of close to them in a major national window, because you end up in those 4 o'clocks or a holiday or whatever that teams prioritize. I think those are all possible. If they end up, I would love to go back to the good old days where you just look down and it's Sunday at 1 as far as the eye can see. I mean, that is just the stuff that makes my heart go pitter patter. No question. But I don't see that coming. Multiple AFC North games are going to be in prime time because
that's the biggest thing right there. It's just with that conference and how good it is. Of course, you've got to have a few of those in there. Maybe they get a home one this year in the conference. And you're right, there are a lot of new hot teams that people are excited to hype up. And somebody did complain to us too about there was a podcast on The Athletic where they were drafting quarterbacks or something, and Burrow went eighth. And this person was outraged, of course, as you should be. If you're taking Herbert over Joe Burrow and Dak, that's kind of egregious at this point. But even with, these hot new teams, there's going to be just too many good matchups that have the Bengals in it to just leave them out of a lot of those primetime slots. All right, our next question is...
Robert Mays was mentioning this because that was on The Athletic. It was on The Athletic NFL show where they were talking about that, the quarterback draft, and Burrow going 8th there, like you mentioned. Robert was saying it's hysterical that I'm the one getting yelled at for this when I'm the one that drafted him. Like, the other people were passing on him. He had 3 picks, and he I believe went Allen, Stroud, Burrow. So he's like, technically, I had him up there in my top 3 or 4 or whatever, but I'm the one taking the heat because I am the one that eventually took him 8th. I didn't do the other picks, these other guys that didn't take him. He's just like, why are you coming at me? So Robert, who I know specifically, would not have Burrow 8th on the list. But yeah, the I guess there's the questions because it was including contracts, and you're talking about over the next 3 years. Maybe it's the concern over the injury stuff. That was all a part of that. But I think it kind of went together. But yeah, send your hate mail to Robert, who was the one trying to defend Burrow. I've been there before, where somehow you end up on the wrong side of an argument that you were trying to, be against.
I also don't understand why fans get so outraged over that stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a huge recency bias in a lot of NFL media coverage. That's all sports media. It's all hot takes. What happened recently? So Burrow got hurt. He missed that last chunk of the year. He's not going to be on the front of everybody's talking points the way he was after going to the Super Bowl, going to the AFC Championship game. Like, that's just the way it is. But everybody loves to get frustrated about that kind of thing. Our next question about a possible Bengals reunion. With Denver having drafted a running back, it seems like Perine's likely going to get pushed down the depth chart and potentially released. Should or would the Bengals entertain a reunion? Or is it time for all of us fans to move on from the idea of Samaje Perine back in stripes?
Oh, never give up on the dreams that we all have. Hopes and dreams it's all we've got is our dreams, of Samaje Perine returning. That does seem like it would be something that would make sense. They're open to a veteran running back, I think. I don't know that Samaje Perine is going to get cut. I mean, their depth chart, still think he's in the top 4 there, even with Notre Dame's Audric Esteem, who ended up being the pick there for them, the 5th round. I still think he makes that team. Maybe he doesn't, but I still think he probably makes that team and sticks around. When they got him more involved last year, he played really well for him, and I think Sean Payton noticed that. So we'll see what happens there. If he became available, I think it'd be obvious what the first place that he would maybe be interested in going to, and the Bengals would be making a call about. I don't think that's a secret, just because of his knowledge of the system. But I also don't think that he's necessarily going to be pushed out in Denver just yet. So I wouldn't get your hopes up. I mean, you live your life. I mean, go try, believe all you want. I just don't know that realistically we know that it's going to happen yet.
Yeah, everyone's going to hold out for those guys, though. Whether it was Von Bell, he made that seem like a real possibility. The Hayden Hurst people kind of held on to that dream till the very end. We've been getting questions still until Tyler Boyd finally signed a deal about are they going to bring Tyler Boyd back? Are they going to bring Tyler Boyd? People have trouble moving on from anybody. So the idea of a possible reunion, that's still going to grip people until it's completely ruled out. Our next question is from Eliza in Brisbane, Australia. We're going all across the pond now. Yeah. This is much farther than the county line between Claremont County and Brown County, and the listener from last week who was checking in from Beaver Creek. We're going all the way to Brisbane with this one. He says, most of the people listening to this podcast privately or publicly have wrestled with the idea of T. Higgins leaving the team. It would seem like he's not long for Cincinnati. So the Bengals kept him on the team this year because they have a real shot at the Super Bowl. So if you're going to lose a critical piece, shouldn't this be the go all in year? They could have made a bigger attempt to keep DJ Reader, and I get that the money is infinite, but the Bengals have money to spend, don't they? How come they aren't going more all in free agency and just all across the board here, as they're putting all their chips to the center of the table? So he wants to know why the Bengals didn't go all in for this season.
I mean, I think it's a fair question, specifically in relation to DJ Reader, a deal that they could have done, and maybe that's more of the all-in nature. They also, I think by the end of this, their cash spend will be up there with everybody. They'll be up to the cap. I mean, they'll get. I don't think it's a matter of people are thinking that they're holding back or won't get there. They always do get there. They tend to treat it a little differently, and their cash, particularly in the outlay that they still are giving to Burrow right now, is significant, and a lot more than you'd be talking about in terms of like the cap hits and things like that. So I think the books are weird when you get into when you're dealing with the big quarterback contract and stuff like that. I think that their cash spend will be high this year. It looks like it's on pace to be, and that they'll spend to the cap. Spending more on free agents is not always the way to go all in. And I don't know that that's something that they necessarily are going to do. I get it. And I think Reader is the circle point. And that's why we discussed it at that time of, look, this is one that we'll look back on and say, should they have or should they not have? Are they better off playing what's going to be, I guess, McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins, or are they better off having Reader in there coming back from injury? TBD, right? They made a decision kind of not to go that direction, and we'll second guess that. We first guessed it. So we'll see. That is the one that you're looking at and saying, yeah, that's the move that they could have made. I don't know that I saw, and maybe I'm looking at it differently, but I don't know that I saw other free agent moves that I felt like they really left on the table outside of that. The defensive tackle position, I mean, whether it's Reader or going a different direction there. I don't know that I really saw anything outside of that felt like, boy, what a missed opportunity that was in free agency. They could have really gone for it. I feel like the rest of it sticks to the plan.
Right. Like it just doesn't seem like, if you are upset about that, what is the go all in move? What's pushing your chips to the center of the table? Because the Reader thing, that if that was solely a money decision, And, he didn't even get that much. But if it was a money play of like, all right, we're going to go younger with this position, then maybe I understand that argument a little bit better. But we don't know how the injury stuff's going to play out. So that's a question mark about whether or not that was the right move or why that was the right move or the move they made. But like you said, I just don't know who else was out there that you should be frustrated they didn't spend money on. If you're looking at the positions, a free agent, like maybe a better offensive lineman, but the first round was stacked with so many great offensive tackles, you kind of had a pretty strong feeling you were going to get one of those guys there. And, there's also the teams that have gone all in before, like they spend a lot of money on some free agents that don't pan out. Look at Buffalo. They spent a lot of money and then they had to get rid of a lot of guys. And is that really worth it? From that standpoint, or is it better to play the long game like the Bengals have done and kind of keep that window open Burrow's whole career?
Yeah. I mean, we always would joke about it, but every year Browns fans hanging the offseason champs banner. I mean, it's just like you can win the offseason so many times. Like you can say you crushed it in free agency, and it's just not a winning game in March very often. You need to be able to play it well and supplement. You can't be trying to go all in. There's just not a ton of history there of that being successful value. And I think they're always going to be playing the value game and trying to get the most, and they will spend to it. I mean, let's meet here again once we get through the season and see where they ranked in cash spend and where they end up ranking in cap spend, because there's still extension possibilities that could happen in August, which are a part of your plan, and things like that. So there's still time to see where this ends. Let's talk then about where their cash and cap spend ended up and if they did or didn't spend our money and left more opportunities out there outside of, I think, the one that we've kind of discussed with Reader or defensive tackle.
Yeah, and not that I think it would even make all that much sense to take that one home run swing. I get that Higgins is likely going to be gone after this season, but this team is still built to win games longer than just one more year. It's not like this is their last hurrah for all of them. Our next question is from Corey and Mason. Do you hear or see any signs that the coaching staff is working to adjust the structure of the offense or defensive systems? For example, running more from behind center or simplifying defensive looks. Considering that it was a talking point last year, do you think it would be a mistake to only change the players and not adjust the system itself?
Specifically, when we're talking about offense, I do think that the system is changing. Dan Pitcher is changing things. They brought in Justin Riscotti, who is bringing some stuff from Minnesota that they plan on using that I think will give a fresh look to their base principles of what they've been doing. And I think they're going to find new ways to get Jamar Chase involved that are going to be exciting. I do think offensively, you've heard them talk about scheme changes and adjustments, and they've shifted to how can we be more explosive in both personnel and scheme. Now, we haven't seen the scheme part yet, but they've said that's stuff that they're working on the same way that they changed up what they were doing with personnel. So offensively, that's a big yes for sure. Defensively, I think bringing in players that are more capable of handling and understanding what's going on was a big part of the problem. I don't know that the scheme, the same one that was working in previous years, all of a sudden not working, you're going to point to the issue. I think they're always evolving. Lou Anarumo is always going to be looking at new things, but I really do think so much of what was happening there was a matter of just not understanding busted coverages, communication issues that were really dogging them through the majority of the season. And I think they feel like fix the communication issues was such a big part of that. And part of that is the growth of the DBs. And part of that is bringing in DBs better communicators. That's Von Bell. That's Geno Stone. You hope that's Jordan Battle in year 2. All of that. That's emboldening Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt to be more involved in that regard and understanding how important that's going to be. So I think you're more scheme on offense than I would think you would see different scheme on defense, that being more about communication and fixing the personnel on that side.
And there's a lot to like about that scheme on defense when they always get those red zone turnovers that seem inexplicable. Like, hey, who doesn't like that in a scheme? All they need to do is tweak that offensive scheme of just more touchdowns every drive, and then it's perfect.
Just stop giving up like 50-yard receptions. Like, just if you could just have half of the bombs that you got hit on happen to you, they're back basically where they were. So I mean, that's just kind of half the battle. Just tighten it up. Less of that. Less of that thrown over top of you stuff. That's bad.
Yeah, just some free coaching advice from the Growler Podcast Network
There it
here.
is.
Dey Light just really helped me out
welcome.
to limit those explosive plays and have more of your own. That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Let's take a quick second here and talk about our great friend here, and I think yours now at this point, our guy Eric Stanyo of Keller Williams. Stanyo, maybe you're already part of his clan, we don't know, but you probably know him. He's been on the show, of course. He's #1 real estate YouTube channel in Cincinnati, which is over there on YouTube at Team Stanyo. That's SZTANYO. Find your home, strengthen your family. He's one of us. He's one of us. He's a Bengal fan. He's a Cincinnatian. He's a dad, even though he supports urinals in the house. I mean, we're still under debate on that, but some good advice from him on that last week. You should seriously go check out his YouTube channel. So if you're thinking about moving here, you're just thinking about moving at all, or you just like want to know information about the topics, about markets, stuff like that, he has so much great content over there for you to go and take in. If you have any questions about Cincinnati, the real estate market in general, any of that stuff, great stuff over there. Make sure you check it out. Join the Stanyo clan, yo. You can always do that by not just subscribing to his YouTube channel, but go over to Instagram at estanyo. You can go over, of course, if you're gonna buy or sell a home, email him directly, info@teamstanyo.com, or go to www.teamstanyo.com and connect with him. We'll have him back soon. He's got more questions. He's got more questions for us. He always has questions.
Yeah, it's his busy season. It's spring. People are buying and selling. End of the school year. People are making their moves. So the Stanyo, he's very busy these days, but I'm sure he's going to come back with some great questions for us. Great questions like from this next one from Matthew. He says, "Hey, Mark and Paul, my name is Matthew." Honestly, you don't need to open with that, though, to be fair. If you're sending us an email, you can always put it at the end. You don't need to say, "Hi, my name is," but we still appreciate that. Matthew's question is, so Jay's known for sneaking into concerts, and apparently Mark is now known for throwing people out of his shows for singing about Blue's Clues. What would it take for Jay to get thrown out of one of Mark's shows? And I do want to say that, he had a PS here. He works for Brinks here in Cincinnati, so he also wants to know if if we could probably help him out here and get Mike Brown to agree with his boss to let him bring Chase's money to the stadium when he, quote, gets the bag. I think I like that idea. That part of his email I'm on board with. Let him just drive the cash to him, to Jamar Chase, after he signs his what we assume his extension then he'll get. Maybe he can drive some of that Brinks money to us.
It really feels like a sponsorship the Bengals should be selling. And, all we do is just give great ideas here. I think they should give Jamar his bag, and you sell, however much for a person to have the right to hold one of the bags of coins, gold coins, Scrooge McDuck style, right? And you sell like 400 people line up outside of Paycor, each holding a bag of gold coins, and each give one directly to Jamar Chase, who accepts them, says, "How you doing?" Takes it, moves on, and does that over and over again, puts them maybe into a Brinks truck, and Brinks is there. Maybe they're supporting this as well. I feel like there's a lot to be done with delivering of gold coins. Maybe just put it into a giant pool that he could swim in somewhere in his house. I'm fully supporting all of this. Any kind of gold coin delivery that you have people pay for. You could do an auction, do a silent auction for an opportunity to be one of the gold coin deliverers to Jamar. I love all of this. You're welcome yet again for ideas that we give.
Yeah, that's what we need is Jamar Chase to just dive head first into a big swimming pool of gold and just really, mess up his shoulder or his neck on that. Maybe we should have somebody else do that. That should be our Bengals fan baptism.
Right after you pay him a bunch of guaranteed money.
Yeah, he ends his career by diving into the gold that you put out there. That would be a good idea for Matthew. the Brinks employee, for his question about what it's going to take Jay to get thrown out of one of my shows. I guess my tendency right now is if he starts singing about Blue's Clues. That was the woman from St. Louis a few weeks ago. She was very inebriated. That's a big clue, right? Like if you're somebody that's on your second bucket of beers before the headliner has even hit the stage, if you're already 6-7 drinks in, you're on the right path to getting tossed out of a comedy show. If you just start talking, period, audibly taking away from the experience of the people around you, that's what's going to get the attention of the people that work at the club. Now, me, I'm fine with like hecklers. I'll go back and forth with people because it's easy to shut them down when you have the microphone. They don't. You can make them look very silly. But the club staffs don't have the patience for that. Even with Blue's Clues girl, like I was fine just putting her in her place repeatedly. This happened during a part in the show where we had some Dey Light fans at the show. We were talking about football. There was another guy from he was the Browns fan, and then the new guy that was the Bills fan. So there was a lot of back and forth happening. So I understand she thought that was her part to jump in. It was just a little bit of a weird avenue that she took with her Blue's Clues singing. And even after shutting her down 3 or 4 times, that's when the club was like, all right, she's got to go. We are getting this woman out of here. So if Jay breaks into song at one of my shows, I think that's the line, right? If he starts, he's got to be 7-8 drinks in and then just breaks into a children's song, then yeah, I think that'll be the line for him.
What if he just starts firing out some Warrant?
Then I might just bring him to the stage. Honestly, I don't think I would throw Jay out. I think I would bring him to the stage and let him sing it into the microphone. I would pause the show and turn it into a little karaoke session. Maybe let him go a cappella on some of that.
Always possible. Always possible. I did win. Jay and I, of course, do we do Survivor game where we try to, on the show Survivor, which we're addicted to. People that are longtime listeners know that. We try to pick before each episode, pick one person who will not be eliminated tonight and see who can hang on the longest into the season. And on the line that each season is going to a concert of the other one's choosing, because we have very different musical tastes. And so there's a bit of a torturous element to me going to a Slipknot show or whatever, or maybe I can bring him to like some 90s hip hop act that's going to be on tour. I'm not sure which one I'm going to pick yet, but he won the last season. And just this past Wednesday, I got my retribution and I got a victory this season. So maybe him and I can figure something out musically on some good maybe a dueling karaoke element where we sing something from some shows that we've gone to for you.
Oh yeah, that would be exciting. Maybe make that the next live show for our podcast. Yeah. It's just you guys singing.
Yeah, that's what you want. That's what the people want. They've been asking.
Yeah, I don't think the Brinks guys come into that show. I just got to tell you.
No, there's no question. There's no question.
All right, so now we're getting into Ambush Light.
No, is it Ambush Light time?
It's Ambush Light time. Shout out Brian. I do want to say, exciting. Brian, he did send some Ambush Light questions, which Brian, keep trying. We might use some of those later in the summer. We stole the name of his segment, but we're not answering his question this week. But we had a good one. Our Ambush Light comes from our first Bengals fan in Bengal. We got an email from the part of India where the Bengal tiger originated. I think he doesn't make it clear. Bengal obviously was a province of the old undivided India, which I'm sure you knew, Paul, because you are a geographical expert.
Big geography buff. That's been proven.
Right. So Bengal was now divided across the country of Bangladesh and West Bengal state in India, which is where he is from. And so he, I think, became a fan during the COVID time. And since he lives in Bengal, he decided to adopt the Bengals as his team. So that's pretty cool. So if you live in Bengal from now on, we will answer your question once.
Yes.
So this is open to all of our listeners in Bengal. You get one free question that we will answer on this show. And his question is for you as a reporter covering the Bengals day in, day out. Do you have topics that your editors give you beforehand based on audience and reader engagement? Or are you just cooking up all these story ideas yourself?
Well, most of the stuff you see, I obviously I'll have you guys know Dave Ninemits from the show, who's my editor. We'll talk about stuff and kind of kick around story ideas and brainstorm stuff that I'm thinking or that he's thinking. And we'll kind of, see where the conversation gets those to go, or there's ways to use some of the athletic community of writers to whether to add into a story or who to talk to for something or some idea that's worked in other markets. Like that stuff gets cooked, but most of it starts from, myself. It just starts from kind of me hearing things, talking to people, and having ideas, angles that seem like they could, a question that I have, and that I want to have answered, because I feel like if it's something that I'm thinking that I don't quite understand, I feel like it'd be great for other people to understand. There's other stuff that we do that is more based around big tentpole events. Like some of our coverage is, you'll see certain things that we'll do. They'll be in headline form where people will say, hey, well, let's write a headline. So when you see our headlines on our site, which are quick analysis of stuff that's happening like almost immediately, that's stuff that is asked for by our news desk. And so we can get information to you guys about big topics quicker and then give us time to work on some of the deeper dives behind those. So that's the stuff that comes from above editors type stuff. But most of it, the stories that you read, and in my opinion, the stuff that's really good, that's all my idea. I take all the credit for it. That's got to be totally me.
So is there anybody at The Athletic that you could blame for you picking the Bengals to win the Super Bowl last year? Is there somebody you could pass that off on?
Oh, sure. I'll just blame Dave. I mean, he never said that I should do that or cared or mentioned it at all, but he should have just stopped me when he saw me doing it and just realized that was a terrible idea. And that it's something I always said I would never do. He's known me forever. Why did he let me do that? I blame him. It couldn't possibly be my fault. This is how a lot of things go.
Yeah, I think Dave just knew the arrows that were going to be coming for you, and he wanted to see that. And that I appreciate that perspective from an editor of like, all right, you know what? He's going to go out there on this, have fun. God bless. It either works out, they win the Super Bowl. That's going to be good for engagement and readership, or they don't, and he gets crushed, and that'll be just fun for the rest of us to see. Can you give a chance at pronouncing our Bengals fan from Bengal's name?
Our Bengal fan from Bengal. Where's his name? You mean Shantanab?
Shantanab. Okay. Well, I hope he's listening to this, and I hope that he is now enraged at how you butchered his name.
Yeah, I apologize. That
It's
wasn't my fault. Again, Shantanab. Is that what we're going with? Let us know. Send us a pronunciation key. You guys send them. You can open your email with your name if it includes a pronunciation key off the top. Which I apologize that we weren't more well versed or sent some kind of reply email. That's on us.
I mean, listen, we can't get names right. We can't even get countries right. Like we were Brisbane. Our emailer from Brisbane is because we mispronounced Brisbane like a month ago on the show. And somebody else was mad about you for your putting a country in the wrong part of the world. So we can't get names right. We're doing our best with cities and countries. All right. We did. We also got some good feedback this week. We have homework. We gave our people homework. There's a lot that we're working on. Here's the big topic right now. So we still need a name for our listeners, our fans. Growl Pack, not there. Growl Pal, not happening. The Den, we ruled that out. But we did get some good suggestions for Bengals fan baptism. Now, this all goes back to the Bills fan that jumped onto the bandwagon in 2022 during the playoff run. But he also earned his way in by diving through the table. So we're trying to find the Bengals fan equivalent. And we had a few disgusting suggestions last week of things that people could eat or jumping into the Ohio River. Dangerous solutions that Paul quickly disregarded and threw out just for the safety of our listening audience. He doesn't want any Bengals fans to endure that kind of torture. So we asked for better ideas. Lonnie in St. Charles, he sent one. He said the Bengals fan baptism should be the new potential fan has to watch the 2005, 2009, 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Basically any close playoff loss, any playoff loss period. They've got to watch all of those just to understand how tortured the fan base truly is. And we got a similar suggestion from Joe, who's basically, if you're going to be a new fan, you have to sit there and watch the entire 2015 Bengals playoff loss to the Steelers Clockwork Orange style.
I mean, that's a tough one. I will say subjecting someone to have to watch, but if you weren't a part of it, if you didn't understand the frustration as it went on and on, you're just sitting there watching another football game, right? That doesn't really matter to you. I think you got to find some way to make it painful. So I don't know if there's a way that, they lose money somehow, or a bet in retrospect that somehow they have to lose for every time they have to watch one of these, something that can make it more painful than just sitting there and watching these games, because they're not that painful to watch if you weren't invested at the time. The problem was how invested you were at the time and how they continued to build on top of each other. So I think that needs work. I like where your head's at, but I think that needs work to bring a little bit of element of pain, and not just to say, oh, I've seen those. Well, that is a lot of time. If you're watching them consecutively, having to be awake. Maybe every time you fall asleep, you have to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, you got to watch it straight through.
Yeah, so you are watching all of those games and just tortured by them, forced to stay awake for fear of having to go back to the beginning. Maybe that's part of it.
Now, we did get another idea kind of off of that as well, but this one isn't about watching the games. It's about finding a tortured Bengals fan and letting them describe the decade of misery for an hour. They get to pick the decade, whether it's the 90s or some of the injuries and playoff losses over the years. Like, they get to pick the topics, but that person just has to sit there and listen to this long tenured fan talk about the misery for a full hour. I think that's a little bit better of a price to pay. Like, if you've ever talked to an old person telling you how things used to be, or he's got a story that nobody in his circle will listen to and hasn't listened to him tell for 20 years, that can be pretty torturous. So maybe there's some legs there.
I agree. I think anybody that claimed to be or actually was at the Freezer Bowl tells you that story. I think that's absolutely in play. I like this. You get the long form version of big event in Bengals history from somebody. And I think anybody that's listening to this, if you are a Bengal fan and you've got your group, you know who it is. You know who in your group is going to be the one that's going to be the one to tell the story and give you the long version, maybe the worst version possible. I'm with that. Just the lowest moments in Bengals history through somebody who's embittered, but because of them.
Yeah, and they have to do it for a full hour, and that's really going to drive the torture home. We did have one physical idea, similar to the Bills Mafia table dive. This one it definitely fits in the TikTok style. So the Bengals fan baptism would still have a level of danger and stupidity and bodily harm, just like the table dives. But this one is any new Bengals fan must be tackled by somebody wearing a Steelers jersey, recreating an infamous Steelers dirty hit. The hit will be recorded and then stitched alongside the actual footage of the original hit. So you're talking about like the Kevin Huber jawbreaker, the Hines Ward, Keith Rivers hit, the Juju Smith-Schuster, Vontaze Burfict blindside hit. You could do, you don't want to go on some of those, but basically you can do any of those major hits and you get bonus points if you're holding a beer while it happens, while somebody drills you in that Steelers jersey. Maybe a little dangerous.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be so much like Fear Factor. I feel like people want it to be this element of like, are we going to be all right here? I don't think we want that. I think we want to know everyone's going to come out of it okay, but they'll just have a better understanding of what it means to be a Bengal fan. I don't think you need to get your ribs popped by some dude in a Steelers jersey and now you understand. I don't think that's it at all. I think we need to go much more to the mental torture if we're going to be torturing, which is so I would certainly lean towards the watching of old games or the stories from a bitter old fan. And I'm much for that than I am for anything that is going to be a painful experience.
Yeah, we don't want to see that would really bum out a tailgate. The table thing is it looks worse than it actually is. And I think any of these hits, it's going to really kill the vibes at a tailgate. If somebody has a broken jaw at 10:30 in the morning, like, oh, this is not what we thought this was going to be. Now we've got to get first aid down here. We've got to get medics down here. We've got to get somebody on a stretcher. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, now you can root for the team, I guess. Have fun watching us next week. Like that is way too steep of a, just be a bandwagon fan at that point. Just who cares, oh, I'm a bandwagon fan, whatever. At least I don't have to drink through a straw for 6 weeks, just own it. Just own it.
I mean, I think it's like, look, I need to be baptized into being a fan of figure skating. Okay, then I have to hit you over the knees with a bat. All right. And that's how we make you a figure skating fan. Right. Like this is not, it doesn't have to be that way. There's other things. Maybe you have to watch like 3 hours of a 1994 Inside Edition where they talked only about Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. That's better. It doesn't have to be something that actually physically hurts you. And let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's accusing
We're not done
you
yet. I don't think we found the winner completely. We're getting closer, but we have not found the winner completely yet. So keep sending in your Bengals baptism submissions. If you think you can improve on those that we've talked about, or you've got a different idea, maybe we stop trying to endanger lives. And I think we can do this better.
And that's the thing is like we've talked about the other hot teams that people are obsessed with right now, but Joe Burrow is going to be looking better and better throughout the offseason, and this team's going to be good. People are going to remember, oh yeah, that's the quarterback that was awesome for those years. Like this team is a lot better than we remember, and that's when you're going to see the influx of bandwagon fans that want to jump on board. When they don't have that slow start to the season, they win their first game or two, you're going to see a lot, that groundswell of people that want to get on board again. So we need to have this ironed out before then. We aren't there yet. We don't want people diving into the Ohio River. We don't want people eating Montgomery and barbecue sauce mixed with graters, mixed with Skyline. We don't need that. So we'll get there. And these ideas have been good. I think we're making good progress here, but the homework still remains. It's still out there.
It is. I love it. So let's where are we going next? We're going to Comedy Corner. Where are you at next?
Oh, I'm at Columbus, Ohio this weekend. That's all they're going to be fun shows. If you live in the Columbus, Ohio area, I'm doing the Don't Tell comedy shows, which are some of the best pop-up shows in the country. They're always at weird locations. It's like the hip, cool new thing ever since COVID that you get the mystery location and they just email you day of and a secret lineup, which I have now blown the secret on my part, but I'll be appearing at all of those shows this weekend. And then I'll be at Robinson, Illinois, which I've been told is a real city. I don't know that for sure, but I'll be there next weekend. And then I'm going to Des Moines, Iowa the weekend after. So it's really getting all the big cities in this country knocked out on this tour. But comedy, it's big business right now. Did you watch the Tom Brady roast?
I didn't watch it. I saw enough clips and read enough about it that I feel like I watched it, and got it. But I mean, it was quite a show. Apparently, I mean, it was all gloves off, man. No messing around. They went the full deal. I appreciate that. I'm a big roast guy in general. I've watched like all of those in the past, but I gave up on Netflix, so I had to. So this was kind of a tough spot for me.
You gave up on Netflix? The only like
Netflix.
I like it. You're just a Hulu guy from here on out.
No, we don't really do any of that. Like it's just not. It's not where we're at with what we're watching. So I lost it. We had it. We got rid of it, and then I was like, it went up, and I was like, are we gonna pay? Are we gonna go with this? We're gonna pay more? And I was like, we're not using it that much. Not enough.
Do you want our listeners to start emailing you their Netflix passwords just so you can?
That's a great idea. I love this. I love this. Send me your Netflix passwords. I'd love to use them.
Yeah, so Paul can jump on there, watch a roast. He can watch Narcos, and I don't know what else Netflix has these days, but they're going to have something, and you're going to want to watch it. So go ahead and send him your Netflix passwords.
Netflix codes.
And really though, like it was a 3-hour roast. You don't need to watch that entire thing. That's way too long of a roast for anybody. It was interesting to me. And if you are somebody that's listening to this that didn't see the roast, you don't have to go watch the whole thing. Here's what you need to know. Kevin Hart was not that great. Like he was fine as an MC, just wasn't that funny. All the football players, Drew Bledsoe was good because he was short. A lot of the football players went a little bit probably darker and sloppier than you would have expected. You kind of hope they just trust the comedy writers that they're paired up with and just read, good short jokes. And that's why the people that were best on it, Nikki Glazer, just go watch Nikki Glazer's set because hers was very sharp and precise and had some of the best jokes of the night. So you watch that and you've got it pretty much covered.
Yeah. Or just, check out all the clips because all the best stuff has been bootlegged and circulated and it's all out there for you now. You don't even need the Netflix codes. It's all out there. So
yeah, you watch 10 minutes of the clips, you're going to get the vibe of what happened there.
Yeah.
The best stuff surfaces and you're not going to have to watch all the dumb stuff, but still don't let that stop you from sending Paul your Netflix passwords.
Yeah, no.
And this is an idea too that I wanted to run by you because I've been working on this on stage this week. Is just, and I don't know, have you ever gotten the whole, so you have daughters, I have daughters. Have you ever had the guy say to you like, oh, you got to try for the boy? Have you ever gotten that from people?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yep.
Which I can't stand that anyway. Cause it's like, first off, I would have loved a boy. I would have absolutely taken a boy out of, I've got 3 daughters. I'd mix it up and have a little son at this point, but the trying for it, that's the part that I don't understand. It's like, oh, what? I was supposed to control the outcome of this, like during the trying process. Oh, that's the mistake I made when I was trying. Because the whole time I was trying, I was only thinking about one gender. So that's my fault.
Well, it could be, because I don't want anybody talking about any trying that I'm doing in that general area. I think you just need to stay on your side of the line and don't worry about that. That's always. It's always, well, because then you know where it leads to. I got to be like, oh, well, don't worry. That's over because I had to have a thing done with scissors. All right. And now we're here talking about that. And see how uncomfortable everybody feels right now. No one wants to hear about this. But when people bring this up, like they don't know what you don't know what you're bringing yourself into. Maybe we struggled for years and you want to talk about our IVF journey or something, like this is a real thing. Like just be careful going into other people's lives and telling them on what they should or should not be trying for. That's all. You never know where you're going to end up. You might end up hitting stop on a podcast that you were previously enjoying.
But you know what, though? I feel like you should, if someone's going to make it awkward with you, you should keep bringing up the scissors thing. Be like, oh, here's the thing. Yeah. We can't do it. This thing with scissors, and just make it seem like you did it yourself. Like I tried to download something. I saw a YouTube video. It's just a real mess now. And so there's no boys in our future.
Blood everywhere.
This is not where I thought the Dey Light podcast was going today, but you know what?
It was supposed to be lighter.
This is what happens. Sometimes you get to, at-home vasectomies. That's going to be part of the show sometimes.
We should wrap it up with a little dad life here. I don't know what we've got going on in the dad life world. I've got one. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I just today I got to chaperone the second grade field trip to the zoo. And
wow,
that's exciting. Yeah, because you get out there and what I like about it is you just have your 3 or 4 kids they give you with a couple chaperones, and you just have the 3 hours. There's like come back to the bus in 3.5 hours. What's really tough is they tell you 1,000 times, don't buy anything. You can't buy anything because it's not fair to the other kids. That's always, nobody ever listens to that. You'll see the group that's walking around with popcorn. Other groups have stuffed animals. And then there's like, the couple strict parents that adhere to that. And I don't know, how do you come down on that? Do you adhere to the don't buy anything, or do you cave to your little group of second graders?
Boy, that's tough to be anywhere where things are sold with a group of second graders for 3 hours and not buy anything. I mean, that I don't care what else is going on, animals or no animals. That's tough. I mean, somebody's got to eat something. Somebody needs a snack. Somebody needs a drink. Is all this been packed? Do we have their lunches? Like, did everybody get what they needed in their lunches? I just feel like there's just a lot of variables. That's tough. To me, that's tough.
But it's also the flip side of that is like, all right, if we're going to buy you ices or we're going to get you a little penny press so you have a little souvenir. Now it's like, oh, now you've got a secret with a group of second graders. What are the chances that they're going to be able to keep that together? You're going to get on that bus right away and they're going to be like, we got ice cream. And then everyone's going to hate you and the teacher's going to yell at you later. But what is she going to do? I'm an adult. She can't do anything to me. So yeah, get the kid some ice cream.
Yeah.
I didn't get him ice cream. But
that. No, of course
not. What do you got going on in your world?
We had another loss tooth, which was big news. But it was the fifth loss, and now the front three are all missing for my now 7-year-old who had a birthday. But it was really the method that this thing went down. It was a kick to the face by my younger sister. By the younger sister. So the younger sister, they're playing around roughhousing, and somehow it's just foot right to the face. This tooth was only slightly wiggly. We probably had another month of full obnoxious wiggling that's just awful to look at. But instead, the youngest did us all a favor and just gave it a swift kick. And she comes up bleeding, and it's like, I think I lost my tooth, but it was still in there. It was being held on by blood. It was just blood holding on to this tooth. And I'm like, boy, this is not the way that it's supposed to go. But in retrospect now, I'm really happy that it went down this way. Don't have to deal with the month long of drawing it out. And is it going to come out? Is today the day? I can't eat an apple. No, we're just on an applesauce diet now for a little while because the front teeth aren't quite working, getting to use the side a little bit better. But sometimes I think this should be, you just got to line them up and get a swift kick in. And that's the better way to go.
I love it because now anytime somebody's got a loose tooth in your house, you're going to be like, okay, kids, it's time for Fight Club. Everyone get to the basement, get your mitts on. We're going to end this right now. I'm not going to listen to anybody whine about it. I'm not going to see anybody wiggling it back and forth. This is 7 rounds until one of you can knock out the other's tooth, and that's when we'll stop. That's also great street cred for the younger sibling.
There's no easy way out. Yeah, I think there's pride. I think there's a lot of pride happening with Rosie these days that she got the shot in, right, and knocked the tooth out. I mean,
landed the kick.
She takes a lot of it.
Then that's excellent execution.
Yeah, I mean, scary in the moment, but really at the end, really well worked out for everybody. So, all 100%. Right, great stuff. We went to some weird places, and that makes me happy. So, a good show. Rookie minicamp is happening on Friday. So again, we talked about this a little bit the other day. Not a huge deal. More of an orientation for these guys. Schedule next week. Mo and I will be going deep into schedule talk early on Balds Don't Lie early next week. And then Mark and I will have a schedule reaction show for you a day early next week with the Wednesday night schedule. We're going to have tons of schedule thoughts. So Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, ship us your schedule questions. We're going to talk about best trips. We're going to talk about all the fun stuff that comes with talking about the schedule. All of that for you a day earlier next week on Thursday. So keep an eye out for all of that coming your way. And of course, always send your questions to us at thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. And maybe it could end up in the beautiful ambush light section that we totally named ourselves and Brian had nothing to do with. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.